Hey everybody, thank you for clicking on this video. I really appreciate your support. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. For those that are brand new and have never been to my channel, the intent or the focus of my channel will be bringing back to life a lot of old electronic projects from Popular Electronics, from Electronics Now, and there's a whole bunch of other magazines that are no longer published. I think the last issue was sometime mid-2000s, I think, if not a little bit less. In any event, what I'm doing is I'm taking these projects and making them. So I'm going back in time. In fact, this particular project comes from December 1991. Yeah, that's a long time ago. And yeah, so that's what I do on this channel, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you like it, please subscribe. It would help my channel out a lot. So today we're going to build an LED pendulum metronome for our musician friends. So it's a metronome, but it's not a mechanical one, it's an electronic one. So these LEDs should go back and forth, and there's a speaker which should give us the clicks. And that potentiometer should change the value of the pendulum, or the rate it's going. So I've got the components. I've got the PC board. I've got a case. I'll put them in that. I'll have it standing up. And what else do I have? I've got the circuit here. We've got a timer, 555. We've got a counter chip, and then we've got a 1 to 8, and then we've got some a 4011 here. That'll clean up the signal, and this will control the back and forth of the pendulum LEDs. And then we've got a speaker, or an amplifier, a little amplifier with a speaker. So that's the circuit. So what I'm going to do is, well, what I've done already, you can see this board. So this is what comes from the magazine. It's life size, and it doesn't do me a lot of good, only because you can see the traces are white and everything else is black. So obviously I can't use that for making a board and then etching it. So what I found out is I had a video up on YouTube, I still do, and I was asking for help, like how in the day back in 1991 would hobbyist take this and then actually make a circuit, a board. So there was great answers. Some of them related to kind of like a photo etching method. You could do reverse and positive image. But for these days, what I do is a toner transfer method. And I take the actual circuit or the board, and then I'll transfer it onto here through a laminator, and then I'll etch it. Well, how did I get from here? Well, from here to here. Well, it turns out that I could use a photo editor. So I actually have one. I've got GIMP, which is freeware, and it's fantastic. So within GIMP, I took that image, and you can actually do a reverse, which basically brings you to this point. And what you can also do is increase the contrast, so you can get the lines, or the black lines, darker, and it'll give a better transfer onto the board. And it also allows you to edit the actual lines, so you can make them thicker, wider, you can make them thinner, anything you want. So this is what I ended up with. I'm hoping it's good enough, and we're going to find out right now. What I'm going to do is print it out on a special piece of paper, and then put it through the toner transfer, and we'll see what we get. So let me bring you back in when I get there, and we'll see if the board turns out. Okay, so those that are interested in the toner transfer method that I use, I put the board through a laminator. This is a laminator that you would buy from the store, I suppose. And as the board comes out, it's very, very hot. So this is the board, and the piece of paper is the actual image of the actual board traces. So I sandwich it onto the board, and I put it through the laminator. And then once it's done, I'll put it in some cold water, and hopefully we should be able to see all the traces. So I'll bring you back at that point. And the board is done. So I've got it, I ran it through the laminator a whole bunch of times, and I've now just dipped the board into cold water. That's all this does. So this paper will come off, and hopefully it should leave us the traces. And I'm hoping to God that they work out because I've really got some tiny, tiny or thin lines in here. So anyway, I'll bring it back in once this paper has rolled off. Oh, there it is. You can see it right now. All right. Okay, so let me bring you in a little bit more closer and we'll see how good the toner transfer method worked. Okay, so there's the board. It's out of the water and didn't turn out too bad. Now, I do have some very, very, very fine traces over here that I'm a little bit on edge to see if it'll actually come out from the ferric chloride and if the lines will be there. I may have to run some very fine wires in between these just to make continuity. These ones aren't too bad. And what I found out is because I'm using paper, right? So I print out the actual board on paper from my laser printer, and then as you've seen, I cut it out and I put it against the board and I put it through the laminator. Well, what you'll find out is there are tiny bits of paper kind of left over sometimes in between the closer traces, especially these ones. So I use this little screwdriver here to kind of just take those little white fluffy pieces of paper off or out. And yeah, so I think this is the best it's going to get. So I'll put it in the etchant and we'll see what it looks like. All right, well, I'll bring it back in at that point. Okay, so for those that don't know, I have this homemade fume hood. I've got a couple fans at the top and they go out to the window. Yeah, it's clearly a homemade job. Any event, it seems to take the fumes out, which is the most important part. So I've got the board. I'm going to put it in to the etchant, and oh, by the way, I've got a heater. So I've got it just a little bit below medium, which seems to work. And if you're ever going to do this, make sure that the bowl you put it in is Pyrex, because the heating element and a regular glass will break. So if you're ever going to do this, please get a Pyrex bowl of some sort. So anyway, we're going to let this soak, and it might take, oh, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or something like that. You got to remember, I've reused this etchant a lot. So this would be my 6th time on this bottle, and I'm not even too sure how much on this bottle, but I have a funny feeling it's very similar. So anyway, let's let this soak, and I'll bring it back in. Okay, good news. I've got the board out of the etchant, and overall, it turned out fantastic. So you could see, though, I did have one open, and there was just a small, tiny, tiny hairline crack there. So anyway, I patched that up, and I've buzzed out all of the traces, and they're all good. So if anybody's following along at home, you definitely need to buzz out all your traces, because boards, you know, depending on how you etch them, they could be a lot of problems. So it's best to make sure your board is good right before you start putting the components on. And you'll notice there is some staining here on the bottom. I use this lacquer thinner or paint thinner, acetone, I'm not too sure what it exactly is. 99% of the boards I use, not a problem. You know, you just put some lacquer thinner on a paper towel and you just rub off the black, because this is black. You remember, this is actually not the ink, but the plastic from the laser printer. But yeah, for some reason, because this happened to me before with this particular brand of boards, I couldn't get it all off. It was crazy. But you have to be fast. But anyway, most of the boards are fine. You can, you know, use a second paper towel with acetone on it and you'll be fine. But a little bit of discoloring, but I'm not gonna worry about that. Anyway, let's move on to the next step, which is drilling and then populating the components. So I'll get that done and I'll bring you back in. Okay, good news. I've got the board done. And yes, I've done it again. I screwed up. The traces and the components should be on the opposite side. I know what I'm doing wrong. I'm just getting lazy. That's all it is. But you know what? I still made it work. I put the components on the foil side and I got it to go. Simple as that. So let me turn on this metronome. So first of all, we've got a couple controls. We've got the on and off switch, and then we've got the rate at which the metronome will I guess work. And I've got a speaker that gives us our clicks. Now, it's not that loud. I will put the speaker somehow in that enclosure along with the board. And maybe I'll have an external jack for an amplifier. I'll see when I get there. But let me turn it on. There we go. All right, you can see it clicks back and forth, and I'll change the rate. And you can hear the speaker. All right, so the next part, like I mentioned, is to put it into that box somehow and make it all look pretty. All right, I'll bring you back in when I get at that point. Okay, I am done. As you can see, the Metronome is now in its enclosure. I was really thinking about painting the case black, and I thought I had some spray paint, but I don't, so c'est la vie. I guess I'll have to do for now. I'll probably keep it like this. Anyway, it's done. It works. Yeah, it's everything that was promised. Except for I was thinking about putting an external speaker in. And in fact, I put a 1/4-inch jack on the side, intending for that to go to a guitar amp. But it turns out that the actual amplifier is just a 2-transistor thing. It's not even an amplifier. It's just a clicker. And that's what you'll hear on the speaker here. Unfortunately, a guitar amp doesn't pick it up, so that's no use. But in any event, it's done. Let me turn it on for you. Well, let me show you the back first. So there's the back. And yes, I know I did the board backwards. Anyway, it's pretty simple. All it is a 9-volt battery, and there's that 1/4-inch jack that doesn't work. And a potentiometer, and then an on and off switch. Let me just flip it around again, and get you back in, and I'll turn it on. And there we go. There's the Metronome. So for all you musical fans out there, you can build one too if you really have the experience. But anyway, this was just a lot of fun. That's all it really was. I don't play any musical instruments, so I can't say I'm going to use it. But it's one for the books. Anyway, thanks for watching. And again, if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. And look for the next project. I will have another project, probably from Popular Electronics. And maybe, just maybe, I might get into some tube amplifiers after the next project. Anyway, take care. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.